Are concepts simply imprinted on the mind by experiences? For the first sections on Locke. All concepts of our mind come from experiences as the starting point. An example would be a blind man has never and will never have the concept of blue without ever experiencing it or having any other colors to compare it to or manipulate it to. Let me explain that part a little bit more. To quote what you have in the PowerPoint about empiricists and in turn Locke, all ideas come from experience either through sensations or reflection. Someone could give another person a concept of something if they have had some other concepts to help them get there. Color again for an example. If you have a well-rounded concept of lighter, darker, softer, and other descriptors and are able to apply those to a concept of color you already have, you are able to get pretty close to those new concepts. On page 151, as Frank says, it's part of Locke's theory of mind that once you have the materials of thought, you can compare ideas and can abstract an idea and maybe have your own abstract color spectrum of blues. It can also compound ideas together and make an almost wholly new idea. So we probably, for the second part of the question, blue the concept, do we have a concept of every shade of blue or only as many as we have words for? I think no, we probably can come up with a lot more concepts of blues than we actually have names for. But there is a limited number based on your own imagination, I would imagine, because we're limited beings. If we didn't have words for aqua and navy for the third part of the question, if language had separate words for aqua and navy, would we still have the concept of blue at all? If we didn't have words for aqua and navy, we could probably classify them with a lot of other descriptors. It's like how in the German language they have specific scenarios of emotion, and for a lot of those, we just use one of our root emotions and then we add a lot of descriptors onto it to describe any of those scenarios of emotion. So with aqua, you could probably end up describing it by saying a blue that's harder and lighter and than regular blue. You could probably get most people pretty close with those extra descriptors. Thing is, due to different experiences and perceptions, people have different concepts of those colors already. So I don't think we wouldn't have blue. It would just be a little more difficult, but maybe a slightly more accurate way of explaining the different aspects of blues. These kind of transitions us into Locke's idea of simple and complex. Blue is the simple idea we kind of get from our experience of our senses, while other types are things we have to mull over and do this with. Next section on Berkeley. Are minds more or less inaccessible to human understanding than bodies? How so? Berkeley, you kind of have to understand his concept of the mind first. He has the same sort of idea about the mind or soul as Descartes and Leibniz do, that the one singular function of the mind is just for thought, to think. Ideas are objects of ideas are objects for Berkeley, or qualities like descriptors of them. We only end up having notions about those qualities of the soul or mind, so we can't exactly have a good human understanding of it. I would also think that since we are conceptualized and perceived through God, we in turn would have to have a much greater concept of what God is and who He is. But like as a Christian, I know that we can't put God in a box, so I am unable to really do that as a finite being. So that leaves us with trying to understand the body. Anything we end up perceiving about the body is a perception that is fed into the soul, and none of it actually exists in a material sense, which means it isn't truly something that is accessible, and it's also kind of pointless to study something that isn't real. It's actually one of Berkeley's goals to keep us from studying like the sciences, studying the body, and like citing his philosophy to get us to refocus on faith and God and keep us dependent on religion. On the bottom of 207, Franz has this to say about Berkeley. And from the point of view of a Christian, of course, he can add that it serves the ends of religion. It brings home to us our complete dependence on God, who is involved in our lives at every moment, and also the greatness of God, who designs and maintains this fantastic picture show from moment to moment. So it really appears as though both are pretty fruitless. Although you can still study the human body, it's just a really pointless exercise. Is Hume correct that moral values are not features of the world, but are reactions to it? We don't have any innate knowledge and are driven by our passions. As Frank says in 244, morality is not a matter of reason, and I think I agree with both those concepts. We have to kind of train ourselves to be sympathetic when our passions are ignited by suffering. And I think a really good example of this is something that the Nazis did, which is kind of the opposite of that. They conditioned their society and trained themselves to be able to perpetrate all the acts of the Holocaust, and it just really ends up depending on how we ultimately end up feeling about that action. I do believe that the Christian view can support this too. God put a lot of moral truths in the Bible, and I believe you can hold on to these through human logic because they're grounded on our human nature, our passions, not through our specific minds. They end up being universally true due to that. Maybe the Holy Spirit giving us those little nudges too in our conscious is the same type of thing. And does the theory depend on our being able to specify things as features of the world, which can be described independent of our reactions? For that second part of the question, I don't believe it does. Just again, whether we feel good or bad about it or not. And that's my final exam. Thank you for the wonderful semester. I learned a lot. I didn't feel equipped to handle quite all of these things. I think I definitely should have taken logic first before entering this class. And then also it was again a really interesting semester for me with I had like a staph infection, and I was just like barely managing to keep through going to the classes, and some of the papers I did not put much effort into at all. But the later part of the class, I think I really ended up putting a lot more effort towards it, especially even this video. I made it quite a bit ahead of time, while the last one I was just doing it the last minute. um, Again, thank you for the wonderful semester. If I hope I get an opportunity to take another class with you and be a little more prepared